Taking you to the European Union next, where leaders convene today in Brussels to haggle over how ambitious their climate goals should be and who should navigate the bloc in the coming years. They're seeking a compromise EU leader after political groups failed to unite between a candidate following the European elections.
Also on the agenda, Eastern European countries, Hungary, Poland, Slovakia and the Czech Republic, will decide on a common stance on the EU's 2050 climate goals. 8 countries, including France and Germany, are pushing for net zero carbon emissions by 2050.
But concerns remain about keeping the bloc competitive and affording the shift to low-carbon technology. For more on this now, we're crossing over to Oliver Miocic. He is in Brussels. Now, Oliver, what specifically is holding up this appointment for this compromise EU leader, and who could be shortlisted?
So the usual process by which the European Union gets its new Commission President is by something known as the Spitzenkandidat. That is where, following the European Parliament elections, the leader of the biggest group is automatically given the Commission President role. So in normal circumstances, that would be Manfred Weber. However, there is some deep concern among many EU leaders that he just does not have the necessary experience in order to lead the institution, which you can see just behind me. So they are calling for a whole host of different candidates. French President Emmanuel Macron says he believes that Michel Barnier, who has been chairing the EU side of the Brexit negotiations, would make a good candidate, as well as Margrethe Vestager. She's the acting Competition Commissioner for the EU from Denmark. She is part of the Liberal group here. There's a number of different people who are being seen as potential fits for the job, including Frans Timmermans. So there's a few different names that are being thrown about, but there is a lot of way and a lot of work to get to in order to whittle down those names, because the European Union is built on consensus politics. Everything is done about agreeing in mass. On this occasion, for the President of the European Commission, we're going to see that there's got to be a 65% approval rate. So 21 out of 28 of the member states have to agree on these names, and it is no easy feat, because France wants to have a gender-balanced proportion of roles given out. There's got to be roles that are given out from Northern Europe to Eastern Europe to Western Europe. So there's a lot that's got to be discussed, and Angela Merkel, the German Chancellor, arriving in the last 20 minutes saying she does not believe that there might even be agreement this evening.
Well, there certainly seem to be going to be a challenge getting a consensus, a challenge as well for these ambitious climate goals. What will it take for the countries firmly against committing to net zero carbon emissions to change their minds?
So there is now a concerted effort to try and water down these targets which the EU is trying to set. The European Union wants to be able to make some sort of ambitious statement before a UN climate change meeting, which is due to take place later this year. It had originally proposed 2030 as a year to reach net zero contributions. Now it looks like, following some protests from countries including Croatia, Poland, Czech Republic, that will be pushed back to 2050. But in the last few days, behind the scenes in the subcommittees that are formed here in Brussels, there's a change in language. Now, this might sound very slight to me and you, but those countries are asking for it to be mid-21st century. Now, 2050 and mid-2000s, is there any real difference? Well, 2050 is a static set date. The mid could be 2055, 2056, 2057. So there's all of this electioneering and politicking that's going on from these Eastern European countries, because they say they've got a lot of their energy requirements that come from coal. They've got a lot of factories that spew CO2 into the atmosphere, and there's going to be economic costs for them in order to try and reach that goal quicker.
All right, well, thanks for keeping an eye on it for us. Oliver Miocic speaking to us from Brussels.